G'day guys, today we're having a look at the T-34-3. Now, this tank was developed on the chassis of the T-34-2 with reduced armor and a better, harder hitting gun, and boys, this 122mm gun, very hard hitting. At 390 alpha damage, this tank can really rack up damage very quickly indeed. So guys, stay around and we're going to have a look at the stats right now and see, is this tank something that you would like to pick up and put into your garage? So guys, having a look at the tanks now, we've got the T-34-3 here. We've also got the T-34-2, which is what the T-34-3 is based upon, remember guys. And so that is the non-premium tier 8 Chinese medium tank. We got the 59 pattern, which is a premium tank, which is available throughout the year at certain times, although not always available, and the Type 59, which is the renowned Type 59 that you can only win through exclusive events and competitions. So if we have a look at the DPM, it's not terrible, but it's not amazing. 1746 is the exact same as the very similar anyway to the 1764 on the 100mm gun of the T-34-2. It's also not as good as the 59 pattern, which does have a very good DPM here of 1920, but still worse, a little bit better than the Type 59 using that 100mm. And although it only has 175mm of penetration, guys, this is a premium matchmaking tank, so it cannot see tier 10 games. It can only see tier 9 games at an absolute maximum. So although it certainly isn't as good as the T-34-2 Type 59 or the 59 pattern, it doesn't have to compete with tier 10 tanks. So that 11mm isn't as vital to the T-34-3 as it is to be on the other tanks. Or the Type 59, I believe, is preferential matchmaking. But having said that, 175 isn't horrific. It's the same as the IS-6 and like all the Russian tanks, premium tanks, with that 122mm gun that this tank also pretty much shares, just the Chinese copy of it, I guess, knockoff you could say. So it does have a 122mm gun on it, and that is the same as the T-34-2 if you want to mount it, but most people do choose to go with that 100mm because it is a bit more effective in general, being a bit faster firing. Now, shell velocity isn't great at 800 meters per second, but it's not terrible considering that this tank does have a big old shell flying through the air. So although it isn't quite as good as the T-34 or the Type 59 or the 59 pattern, it still isn't that terrible. Now, ammo capacity is really good in this tank. You can carry 40 rounds, so you can do 15,600 potential damage, which is plenty in pretty much any game you'll ever come across. It's certainly better than Type 59 at 8,500 and way better than the T-34-2, so you do have a very healthy amount of ammunition you can carry in this tank, which you can use to your advantage by carrying a few more, maybe HE rounds for the lightly armored targets and whatnot, which you just wouldn't have the flexibility in the other tanks here. Gun handling, of course, it is not great. It's not terrible, but it's not great considering this is a 122mm gun. Terrible aim time of 3.4 seconds. It's not actually that terrible when you compare it to something like Type 59 with 2.9 seconds, or the T-34-2 with 2.8, and they have smaller caliber guns, but it's still pretty bad. Combine this with a bad dispersion value of 0.46, it isn't great at all, especially when you consider like the 59 pattern is 0.36, but they are different guns, guys, do remember that. And the 59 pattern is based on an American tank with pretty laser-like accuracy, so you can't expect the world from this tank. Having said that, its hidden dispersion values are actually really good, better than the T-34-2 and better than the Type 59, so you will actually find yourselves being really surprised by your ability to snap shots in with this tank sometimes, because it just does it. I guess the hand of Stalin or Mao reaches up from the ground and guides the shell, because boy, can this shell just get into targets you're like, how did that even happen? But it does happen with the really good dispersion values. These were buffed because this tank was pretty poor before it had all these plethora of buffs done to it. So gun handling in the end is actually pretty good, certainly better than the IS-6. So with 0.24, I believe that tank has with the hidden dispersion value. So this tank is pretty good at using its gun, despite its base value stats that you can see in garage, but the ones you can't see, they're the ones that really tell the picture here. Depression wise, only 5 degrees of gun depression, so really bad, but this is a Chinese tank, guys. You can't expect much more from that. The T-34-2 also has 5 degrees, the Type 59 has 7 degrees, which is really good for a Chinese tank, and the 59 pattern has 9 degrees, which anyone would have a heart attack if another Chinese tank had this kind of gun depression, really. So don't expect much. Having said that, this is a pretty low tank, so you can use that gun depression sometimes to your advantage. It does happen. Now, mobility-wise, this tank is actually really good as well. So it's 50 kilometers forward, which is not terrible. Same as the T-34-2 and the 59 pattern, but a little bit worse than the Type 59 at 56 degrees. But its engine power is 520 horsepower, and its weight is 35 tons, just over. So you get a pretty good power to weight ratio of 14.65, and combine this with pretty good terrain resistances, you're going to be shifting in this tank. Sure, not quite as good as the T-34-2, but better than the 59 pattern and the Type 59. Combine this with pretty damn good traverse speeds from the turret and the tracks. This tank does shift pretty well. It's certainly no light tank, but it will move from point A to point B and be able to relocate, and you will be able to get those advantageous positions that you want in this tank, or to be able to go back and maybe reset the cap. This tank can do that, guys. So if you're looking for a slightly more mobile medium tank, then this could be a good place to look as well. Certainly not the CDC either, but you know, it's not terrible. Now, armor wise, the hull armor of this tank is pretty shit. It's only 90 millimeters and it's sloped, but it's still not great. You know, if you over angle, they're going to go through your sides so easily. Any tank you come across, and pretty much any tier 7 plus tank, can go very reliably through the front of the hull if it is even angled pretty well. So don't expect to bounce pretty much anything on the hull. But the turret is a different story. So the turret is pretty much as good as any other tank in this comparison. Maybe not the Type 59 with its very, very good hull, but certainly better than the T-34-2 and also the 59 pattern. If we have a look at it, it has a pretty amazing armor values. If you shoot anywhere in the front, you're not going to reliably go through anywhere. And its cupolas are pretty small as well, so they're not a big target. Having said that, it only has a 30mm roof, so any gun shooting with a caliber at you of higher than 91 millimeters is going to be able to go through your roof because of the overmatching. So if a tank is looking down at you and they're shooting to your roof, you're gone. They're going to be able to get through anywhere. But if they're looking at you from a far distance or whatever, they're going to have a very tough time hitting this area. And then if they're shooting at your turret, then they're doing it wrong. But if they're shooting at your turret, then you're doing it right, guys. You want to make sure that only your turret can be seen. You really don't want that the hull of your tank to be seen, because it is not strong at all. It's kind of like the T-34 in that way. And view range wise, 380 meters view range. It's not terrible, but it's also not that great. But if you use a good crew with good crew skills, and also coated optics, then you will be able to reach probably that 445 meter view range. I mean, it's not as good as the 59 pattern, but I guess you're trading off 20 meters of view range for a terrible turret on the top of its turret. So that's for another review. Also, the fire chance on this tank is pretty low. Shell cost is quite high at 1,000 credits per shot, per shell, per normal shell. So don't expect this to be the best moneymaker tank. If you are looking for a moneymaker tank, this is probably not the tank for you, although you can still get some pretty damn decent results in this tank. But let's go back to the garage now, guys. Have a look at crews and their crew skills, and also equipment. So when it comes to crew skills, guys, I would always put now I would always put Brothers in Arms as your first crew skills, and then I would put Sixth Sense and Repairs or Camo, kind of up to your preference. If you want to be a bit more sneaky, or if you want to be a bit more of a brawler. If you're a bit more a brawler kind of person, then you want Repairs. If you're a bit more sneaky, then you want Camouflage, of course. But yeah, I would always put Brothers in Arms now as a mandatory skill. But this tank is really, really good for crew training as well, guys. So the 4 crew members, they do go in and out of pretty much all tier, I think they go through the tier 7, 8, 9, 10 tanks. Maybe the tier 5 and 6, don't quote me on that though. I think they have 5 crew members, but otherwise, if you have a tier 10 like I do, the 121, then this tank has a really good tank crew that you can move between the 2 tanks. So that is a positive of this tank. Also, guys, looking at the equipment here, vertical stabilizer is a must. This tank already has pretty good dispersion, and you can make it even better getting off those shots that you're just like, how did I even get off this shot in this tank? But you can do it. Coated optics, I would do it because its view range is a little bit lackluster, and you can make that just a little bit better, especially when you combine it with crew skills. I mean, in my tank, I've got it up to 459 meters, which is over the view cap range, so I'm pretty stoked with that. So I can spot tanks before they spot me, which is really, really good for that spotting damage and getting a bit more experience and credit. And also improved vents. Would always recommend these on pretty much any tank. Just makes your crew skills 5% better on all crews members. So guys, let's have a look at the replay now and see exactly how good this tank can perform. Alright guys, so here we are in game now. We have Fengu here. He's obviously pretty good at driving the T-34-3 because he's got 2 marks of excellence in his tank. So we know that this game is going to be a pretty damn good one. So he is speeding off. He's going into the forest. And I remember when this forest was the magical forest. And meaning that someone would get spotted, get completely taken out. And it was just a game of who wanted to go first, spot for the team, but get destroyed in the process. But anyway, that's old. We can see that on this game, he is one of the top tiers. We have one of the new Tiger 131s here, aka the heavy tank number 6 reskinned. Does get shot at, but whatever shoots at him misses. And he hits a T-29 for 394 damage, so already pretty good start. For most other tanks that at this tier that would be at 2 shots. That would require that much damage, or just under, so it's really not that bad in this tank. I really like it for the fact that it is pretty easy to play. And you can see he snaps his shot pretty much off there. The bloom was big, but he still goes through, and he sets it on fire, and that is a product of having such high amounts of alpha damage. It does more module damage, so you have a higher chance of damaging the modules of the enemy tanks, and he got lucky there and hit the fuel tank and took it out, and obviously caused a fire within that target there. He sees the IKV, but decides not to take a shot at it. So we can see that their team and the enemy team are pretty well spread out, actually. There isn't any sort of lemming rushes going on in this game. KV3, none the wiser. Shot goes straight through the front of it. And I hope that goes to show that the penetration of this gun can still be pretty good. Although that KV3 doesn't have the best armor, it has pretty damn good armor if angled. He is over-angling here, but he does bounce, so that could have been a product of RNG or just the angling of that KV3. Although his turret is facing backwards, that is unfortunate. He does bounce a shot. You can see he's pretty much hull down in this position. Although he doesn't have very good gun depression, he does have to come over the ridge a lot. He can also just expose his turret, which is very, very well armed, as we saw. That IKV, no, it doesn't quite take a shot at him. There's a Tiger 1 over there, but that KV3 is shown up behind a building though, so he's not going to be able to go through him. Playing very, very cautiously here, which is not a bad thing at all. Especially since we know the hull armor of the tank isn't well. He does see the AMX CDC, don't know if he spots him, but that is a fast tank. So he gets behind cover very, very quickly. The AMX CDC is coming to support his team on the western flank. I think the eastern flank, but that flank's pretty much gone. Scores are pretty much even. He sees the VK3601, hits him, takes him out. Really good result there. That Yak Panther on the enemy team was spotted, although that is a hard tank. 2 damage indeed. Cheeto takes a shot, but he bounces on the side of the turret. I actually want to see where that hit. Yeah, so it was pretty much in the front of his turret, but he was angling it, so the Cheeto would have hit the side, but obviously not enough penetration to go through. And this tank really is a bully for tier 6 tanks. It really does make their lives hell. But it's not overpowered. He does go through the KV3 there. He might have tracked him as well. I'm not sure. I believe so. I mean, he would have gotten out of the way by now. So he's got a pretty good reload time on it as well. So he's able to pump in shot after shot after shot. Every 11, 12 seconds or so. So that's pretty damn good considering the alpha damage it does. So he's kind of playing very cautiously now. Scores are even, so the game could really go either way right now. Teams are still well spread out. That Yag Tiger is a nasty tank though, with very good reload, and also the armor of a tier 9 well armored tank destroyer, so he does have to be careful that he doesn't get shot at by that Yag Tiger, because it also has high DPM. But oh no, their team is falling down around them. Currently 7-9, still not the end of the world, but they certainly have quite a few nasty high tier tanks on their team. Whereas Fengu here is left with 1 high tier and mainly lower tier tanks after that. And that CDC is starting to pick apart T-34, which does get ammo racked. Poor T-34 there. but you can see he's just able to shoot into that AMX CDC and not worry about anything at all. And he does get shot in the tracks, a very lucky shot there. For him, I should say, not for that AMX CDC. So he's now the only one on this side of the map, on the eastern side of the map. So he's decided that he's going to run away as quickly as he can before he gets surrounded by that Jagdtiger, the STRV, and the CDC, all pretty nasty tanks. The base is starting to get captured, and there's not much his team can do. I mean, that AMX M449L is quite a devastating tank with very, very good armor and a pretty hard hitting gun as well. So he needs to get back to the cap because he knows that he's probably one of the only tanks that can contest that AMX M449, and even to a very small extent because he's a medium tank that is quite a strong, some would say overpowered, tier 8 heavy premium tank. Introduced roughly about the same time as the Defender and the T-34-3 Patriot. So you can see he's being very cautious and keeping the gun facing backwards just in case the CDC pops out or any of the other tanks behind him. He's taking a bit of an aggressive position here. Tiger 131 there. Misses him. That AMX M449 to just take a shot. And it looks like he's going to be very aggressive here, and he is going to shoot at the back of that. It is very lightly armored at the back of that tank, and he takes him out. The best thing about this tank, guys, is that alpha damage. I mean, you can get some pretty hefty shots off it out of this tank, and these tanks here aren't the most heavily armored tanks. You can see that he is able to just be able to go through each tank, and he doesn't really have to worry about not rolling, you know, a certain amount. He's going to be able to take off a huge chunk of their hit points, but right now it's 2-4. It's only a VK3601 tier 6 German heavy tank versus some pretty nasty tanks in the enemy team. That STRV spotted, he gets a shot off, takes off half his health, over half his health, guys. That's how fun this tank is to play. But that Jagdtiger does have such good armor at the front that he's going to struggle in being able to contest that tank. And that AMX CDC, don't know if he saw him, but he's clearly shooting at his turret, so he does have to be very, very careful here. And now he was hit. His ammo rack was taken out. That's something I should mention as well, guys. The ammo rack on this tank is made of paper. That AMX CDC must be spewing right now, having bounced off the gel. But yeah, ammo rack, like any Chinese tank pretty much, is always hit and damaged. It's very frustrating, but it's not the end of the world, especially with all this reloading consumables. Gets a shot in on the STRV's turret. Again, guys, that dispersion really doesn't let you down. It's really not that terrible. That Jagdtiger looks like he's going to ram him behind. Bit of a surprise butt sex here. This is a very big mistake by that Jagdtiger. It is very bad mobility, so he cannot contest Fangu here in his tank. You can see he's trying to keep side on so he can get the best chance of not bouncing off the armor of the Jagdtiger, which can get pretty effective if it is armored well. He stands no chance here at all. But of course he bounces point blank range from the back of the tank. I mean, to be fair, he is shooting down into the back part of the tank. That's where the guns, the bullets were coming out of. But gets through there and looks like he's going to get through this tank. And it seems like this is the last tank on the team as well, so he's done pretty well for himself. He takes out the last tank on the enemy team, winning the game. That Jagdtiger must have been spewing, guys. But let's have a look at the post-game stats and see just how well he did and what rewards he received as a result of this amazing result. And here it is, guys, an incredible result. We can see he got the Mastery Ace Tanker badge here for being in the top 1% of all experience ever earned in this tank, a Bruiser medal, a Duelist medal, a Fire for Effect medal, a Steel Wall, a High Caliber, and a Top Gun. Unfortunately, there was no epic medals in this game, but it was still a pretty damn good effort, especially since he was facing off against 4 enemies by the end of the game. So we can see that he blocked 1300 damage by his armor. And I just want to highlight that tank, most of that damage was happening when he was on that ridge line. So you can use this tank on a ridge line isn't great, but if tanks do try and shoot your turret, they're probably going to bounce. It is a very, very good turret. Of course, if you shoot the rear of the turret, it's a different story, but elsewhere, it is a very well armored turret. Did 6,036 damage, so huge amount of damage, but that's just what happens in this tank when you just keep firing and firing. That 390 alpha damage really starts to stack up, and you start to do a pretty decent amount of damage. Did 1,200 damage over 300 meters, and guys, in the stats, this tank does not have very good accuracy. The stat is pretty damn impressive as well. Only 394 spotting assistance or damage assistance, so it wasn't great in this replay, but you can get, trust me, you can get some really, really good spotting damage in this tank, especially if you combine it with coated optics. That can be very good indeed. You can see here as well, although he did fire quite a few rounds here and they are expensive, he still made a profit of 60,000, so that is pretty healthy, guys. It's not terrible, but it's also not that great. Don't forget that, guys. It really isn't the best money maker. If you're looking for a money making tank, this might not be the tank for you. Alright guys, so we've seen the battle. What do I think about this tank? Should you buy it? I personally really like this tank. It really suits my playstyle. I like the brawling, and I like having some armor in some places and mobility in others. It is, I think, a pretty well balanced tank, and a tank that is pretty fun to play, but it is the most expensive medium tank I'm pretty certain you can buy. So I really like this tank. Would I recommend it? 100%. But if you're looking for something a bit cheaper or something that fulfills a money-making role, then you could look at other tanks like the FV4202 or the AMX CDC or the Reveillerise. Those kind of tanks are pretty good at making money compared to this, but this tank is not bad at it either. And also with that premium matchmaking, I do love that myself. So yes, I think it's worth the gold, but maybe you don't, for whatever reason you've seen in this review. So thank you guys so very much for watching this video. If you could like it, that would be amazing, but if you do dislike it, at least tell me why in the comment section below. Also subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. I do like to release a lot of content now. I am really enjoying making these videos, guys. Also, if you do like health and fitness related content, you can look down in my description, find my Instagram and follow me there. I do like to post some health and fitness related kind of photos down there to kind of improve other people's lifestyles, especially for the diabetics out there, but I can probably think that most of you guys aren't diabetic. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.